and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. Hello, it's good to see some familiar faces in the chat. Today is Friday, September 12th, and I just wanted to talk today, even though it's going to be hard for me, and I hope some of you will. I know some of you will understand that because I just have my emotions are kind of all over the place, and I assume that's true for a lot of you. And so that's why I thought it was important to do the stream anyway and try and talk about what to do with some of those emotions. I know a lot of you have been praying for Charlie Kirk, for his family, for Charlie Kirk's family, for all the people in his life that he touched, for the absence and the loss that we feel here on earth of him. And I know that a lot of you have been praying, hopefully, for the country. We have been in our nightly prayers praying for the country again and for our leadership. And if you don't pray and you want to try it and you don't believe in God, you can still try it. It's still free. No one has to know. You can see what happens. I greatly encourage it. But welcome. We're here to talk today about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I'm so sorry. Gosh, you know what? I wrote something and I'm just going to read it because I think it'll be easier to read it and then I'll get past this little, I'll get past this and then I'll speak to you like usual. Also, for any mods here today, please be swift. And, usually we allow people to a lot of leeway in the chat. And I still want to allow that if there are leftists in the chat who are saying things like he's a hateful person or saying lies about him. I leave it up to your discretion, mods. Like, as long as they're being civil, they can say untrue things. They can say things that are wrong about him. And hopefully, I know you guys well enough in the chat to be able to counter them with truth and civility. But if they're being nasty and they're being vile, we're not putting up with it. Like, there's no 3 strikes, you're out. It's just you're out. Like, I'm not tolerating that in the chat here in my space, in my online home today. So I'm just saying that up top. And I appreciate you guys, the mods that are here. I appreciate all of you. Okay. So I'm going to share this and read this first. This is a Substack that I wrote. I couldn't sleep. I've had trouble sleeping the past couple nights, and I just had to try and put my thoughts down. And so this was my attempt to do that. If you want to subscribe to my Substack, if you want to check out my writing, pretty much all of my essays are free. There are some that are paid subscriber only, but most of them are free, including this one. And it's at kerismith.substack.com. So this one is called The Light and the Dark, on the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the hatred in the hearts of men. I'm sorry. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's horrific assassination, I have been reminded of the hatred in the hearts of men, and specifically, in this case, in the hearts of many leftists, by way of seeing their ghoulish, celebratory posts. I broke down sobbing on Wednesday, as I know many of you have, overwhelmed by the weight of darkness that lives in so many people who walk amongst us. It wasn't just about the inhumanity and violence perpetrated on Charlie by one psychopath, but it was also about the psychopathic traits that are becoming so commonplace in our society, even among people we count as neighbors, as coworkers, as friends, and as family. Jesus told us that the path is narrow in Matthew 7:13 through 14. Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. But knowing that most people are not following the way, the truth, and the life, is very different from being confronted with it In those standstill moments when the veil is ripped back and we can see a glimpse of that truth all around us. In those moments when so many seem to be dancing on the graves of good men and gleefully feasting on evil, we are hit with what I can only assume is a mere modicum of the grief and anger our Creator feels when he watches his creations delight in the wicked, the perverse, and the profane. I am blessed by the Almighty with a husband who understands these feelings that can hardly be put into words. The vastness of sorrow and anger, not just for one evil act, but for the evil all around us and even in our own nature. As if that person or event allowed us to see something larger. In those rare moments, it is as if one has a greater understanding of Jesus' words about humanity. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And then this immense feeling and understanding passes and the veil closes. And I think this is in part because we as humans are not built to be able to feel that much grief and anger for so many people. We cannot sustain it. We see but a glimpse of it when something triggers a vast outpouring of evil into the public consciousness. If you have been blessed not to have witnessed this in your presence, here's just a small sampling of the vile calls for more blood and more assassination posted in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder on the leftist social media app Blue Sky. So I'm going to leave these up here for a second so you guys can see some of these. I'm also checking to make sure my sound is working because we were having trouble a couple of days ago. So it looks like it's okay. We're doing it. We're getting through this. So this stuff that you see on the screen, it's just pages and pages and pages of screenshots of Blue Sky users. Blue Sky is a leftist social media app that allows this kind of incitement to murder. This is incitement to violence. This is calling for assassination. And so it says they say things like, do Matt Walsh next. Now someone get Matt Walsh next. Do Matt Walsh next. Trump next. Do Trump next. OMG, do Trump next. Trump next, please. Chaya Raychik next. That's lives at TikTok. Charlie Kirk is dead. Yay. One less misogynist piece of shit on the planet. Do Trump next. Exclamations. Not sorry. F-U-C-K Charlie Kirk. Karma got Charlie Kirk. That's the best news. Do Trump next, it says. Rest in piss. Go get Trump next. Maybe Elon should be next. Just asking for half the country. Headed for Trump next. Here's a list. Andy No. Benny Johnson. Ben Shapiro. Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is crossed off. Chaya Raychik. Christopher Rufo. Ian Miles Chong. Jack Posobiec. Matt Walsh. Michael Knowles. Nick Fuentes. Tim Pool. It's a whole list. Some of these people on this list are despicable, by the way. I think Nick Fuentes is despicable. I think Benny Johnson is despicable. That's not a popular view among MAGA, but I think he is. Does he belong on a death list? No. Does Nick Fuentes belong on a death list? No. Next, do that bitch from Libs of TikTok. Elon next. Elon next. I mean, I'm just reading a couple of these from each page. There's too many. J.K. Rowling next. J.K. Rowling next. Rowling next. Anyways, Ben Shapiro next. I hope they shoot Ben Shapiro next. Everyone is like Ben Shapiro next or Joe Rogan or whatever. But yeah, that'd be cool. But how about J.K. Rowling next? Can someone shoot Ben Shapiro? It goes on and on. These were compiled by Baby Beginner on X, Jennifer. These are just a few. I'm going to show you some more of this stuff when I finish the essay. There's, I know a lot of you, I've spoken to some of you and messaged with some of you. It's not just strangers online. It's not just Blue Sky and Reddit. It's also people that we know. It's also friends. family, acquaintances. There are also teachers, doctors, therapists, pediatricians who have been posting stuff like this. Some of them have been outed and lost their jobs. There's tons of these. It's people we know. They walk amongst us. I'm going to show you some of these later. But let me just continue this. It's not just strangers online. It's not just bots. I have heard from many of you who are dealing with the grief and anger born of seeing friends and family partake in this feast of the walking dead. It is demoralizing and heartbreaking to encounter this kind of depravity. The kind of depravity that would cause one to celebrate the murder of an honorable man for trying to engage in conversation with those who disagreed with him. I have witnessed a few of my own friends and acquaintances joining this banquet of ghouls, and it has been depleting and demoralizing. In every case, I have found they don't know much, if anything, about Charlie, and what they think they do know is wrong. They casually toss about words like hateful and fascist to describe him, when his beliefs, his speech, and his behavior modeled the exact opposite. One of the most common half-truths I see being peddled online about him is this purposefully edited quote in order to try to portray him as someone undeserving of sympathy. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen this. This one's everywhere. There are a lot of these taken out of context so they can lie about him. This is one of them. It's a partial quote from Charlie Kirk. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term, and it does a lot of damage. Charlie Kirk. Now, they've been sharing this to say, therefore, he got what he deserved. Therefore, we don't have sympathy for him. Let me just continue. Set aside for a minute that if you're someone who practices empathy or sympathy only when you agree with a person politically, then you're not a person who really practices empathy or sympathy at all. The full, unedited quote was, I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, but it is very effective. When it comes to politics, sympathy, I prefer more than empathy. Many people use empathy and sympathy interchangeably and have since the term empathy was introduced into our vocabulary in the early 1900s. But for those who love language and understand what Orwell wrote about language being used to manipulate, being purposeful in our words is important. I don't have the same aversion to the word empathy that Charlie did, although I do understand why he criticized using it instead of using sympathy. If you're interested in his thoughts about the difference between the two, this conversation between Charlie and Allie Beth Stuckey about the subject is a good and relatively short listen. You guys should all go listen to it. It's a 30-minute audio podcast. And for anyone who's confused, because a lot of these leftists, they use empathy and sympathy simultaneously. They use them interchangeably. They don't know the difference. They can't even hear what it is he's trying to say about, like, I prefer, let's use the word sympathy, and here's why. In Christianity, there is a repeated wisdom about judging people by their fruits, not merely by their words, meaning that we should be discerning and look at the way one behaves and lives their life to understand what they believe. This is how we determine who con artists and grifters are, by the way. Many people speak Christian principles, for example, without living them. Many people claim to be liberals or conservatives, for example, without demonstrating that in their actual beliefs. This is a picture of him and his family. And if you don't know him, as some of the leftists and on my Facebook who are posting dishonest things about him and calling him hateful and all this stuff, and then saying they don't know anything about him actually and they don't care, well, or calling him a brand. He was a human being. He was a loving father and husband, and you can see that in everything he did. He wasn't one of the fakers. There are fakers out there. There are lots of them. I mentioned one earlier. I'll name names. Benny Johnson. There are a lot of fakers out there who are grifting off of conservative audiences, off of Christian audiences. This man was not one of them. This man was sincere, and he behaved the way he believed. And you can see it in the way his wife looks at him, how much they loved each other. You can see it in the videos with his children. You can see it in all the hours he spent counseling young men on the importance of being a good husband and being a good father and a son. I'm getting off page again. Here we go. Charlie Kirk was an honorable man. He was a loving husband and father who lived what he believed, who practiced what he preached. He behaved with extraordinary sympathy, or if you prefer, empathy, for those who disagreed with him. He knew the risks involved in visiting college campuses, given the escalating history of violence from the left. In fact, he had just shared a couple months ago, I think it was, some of the very alarming and disturbing statistics we've seen of the increasing percentage of young people who think it's okay to kill people who disagree with them. He had just shared that. And he knew this. He knew this. He knew the risk involved in visiting college campuses, given the escalating history of violence from the left. And still, he put his life on the line to have conversations with young people and to show them how it's done. He is known for saying that, quote, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence, end quote. And that's why he tried to model talking and encouraging understanding through discussion and debate. He believed that ideas we don't agree with are best defeated with better ideas, not with violence. If you go watch some of the best of compilations of him engaging with young people, you will see that he was one of the best at this. He remained calm and civil and treated people with kindness, even in cases where they yelled at him, lost their temper, or called him names. I want to show you this just short clip of him talking about why he did what he did.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults. The left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
Think about it this.
So that's him talking about why he spent so much time modeling discussion for young people who disagreed with him. It is not lost on me that a lot of the leftist friends and acquaintances I know who have disparaged Charlie after his murder are people who falsely call him, and me for that matter, and many of you reading this, a fascist, a Nazi, and a hateful person with no basis in reality. These people are so far out of the loop, they have no idea the pieces on the board or even the game being played. They are easily manipulated pawns being used by neo-Marxists to create a ripe environment for actual fascism and actual neo-Nazis to thrive and grow. Charlie got a lot of hate and attacks, not just from leftists, but also from white nationalists, anti-Semites, groypers, and the red pill manosphere. This was not an accident. They hated him for the same reason leftists do, because he stood for Jesus, for truth, for civility, for dialogue, and for American values. Both kinds of extremes hate discussion. They eschew the war of ideas because their ideas suck, frankly, and want us to instead descend into the chaos of violence and hatred. They know the time is right to play their Pied Piper song for extremism while emotions are high and people are feeling demoralized or celebratory or simply tribal. And so what do we do in times like these when we find ourselves surrounded by evil and tempted to hate as much as we are hated? I have received messages and also seen posts of desperation, people asking for help or prayer because of the bloodlust they feel growing in them at the evil done by those who bloodlust. This is different than a thirst for justice and rule of law. It's the destructive siren's call to become the monsters we fight, to become wrath, to let our very soul become dark by allowing the light to leave, enveloped by shadow. And then I have a verse here. Again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. John 8:12. To those who feel this kind of pull of resentment and malice and who are feeling guilty about it, I'm going to share this with you in case you need to hear it too. And I have to give the same advice to myself often, trust me. To feel this way, this much sorrow and anger when witnessing evil is human. It is normal. That is how we understand it and recognize it when we see someone else totally consumed by it and given over to it, because we have felt it at one time or another, the pull to become what so saddens and angers us. Feel it, observe it, and then pray to God to help you let it go, or ask friends for prayer. Don't let it move into you and take up residence there. Don't let it possess you and pull you into darkness. Call on Jesus to evict it and to bathe you in his perfect light, love, and truth. Even if you do not yet believe, you can still call on him and see. What can it hurt to try? And this was one of Charlie Kirk's last posts. This was, I think, 3 days, a few short days, 4 days before he was murdered. And he said, Jesus defeated death so you can live. And I also shared some verses. I am going to read these. I'm hoping my atheists and my atheist mod will bear with me. Maybe you'll get something through it, from it, even though you're not a believer. This is from Romans 12:17-19. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Let me just say something about that, because I know there will be questions, especially from people who are non-believers and haven't spent a lot of time in the word or learning about, like, what does this mean, or thinking about it. It doesn't mean we can't seek justice. We should seek justice. We should seek earthly justice, just as evildoers will receive in heaven. We should seek justice here on earth as well. But justice is not vengeance. It's a difference. And if you think about that difference, like I'm asking you, think about what is the difference between justice and vengeance? What's the difference between seeing consequences for evil versus you allowing what animated that evil person to animate you? Is something to think about. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Deuteronomy 31:8. This one is from Psalm 34:13. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. This is one of my favorite verses that I have to come back to a lot. Psalm 145:18. The Lord is near to all who call on him. All who call on him. That's why I said you can try. Even if you don't believe, no one has to know. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. This one's from Psalm 139:23-24. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. And this is from John 15:4-5. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. This is Jesus speaking. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. And that's an appeal to fellow believers. And, if this doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you. Somebody was asking me online, what are you talking about? I'm not trying to make you feel any certain way if you don't feel this way. I have seen people in some of the Christian groups I've in some of the group chats, friend chats I'm in, and then individually, I've had people reach out, believers who are asking for advice on what to do and feeling guilty about feeling the pull of this vengeance, of resentment, of this anger. And what I'm trying to say is, you shouldn't feel guilty about those emotions. Those emotions are normal. They're human. The danger is when we become them, is when we let them take up residence in us and live in us and animate us. You are animated. If you're a believer, you are animated by the Holy Spirit. There's no room for you to don't let that demon of malice come in and try to take up residence. Yes, God does say to hate evil, T-Slan. He does. He also says there's a verse about hating the Lord's enemies with perfect hatred. It also tells us then what to do with that hatred, and it says to love our enemies. It says to love them, to give them drink when they are thirsty, to give them bread when they are hungry. That's what you do with that hatred. It is hard. What did we say at the beginning of this? The path is narrow. I'm not saying this is an easy thing. I struggle with it all the time and fail a lot and have to recognize when I've failed. Yes, Lily of the Fox Valley, be angry and do not sin. Yes, anger is fine. And speaking angry truth and righteous truth, you should. The truth will make them angry. The truth is going to make them angry. It will be offensive. Scripture tells us this too. It's going to be offensive. Speak the truth. Speak it righteously. Speak it loudly. What I'm saying is we don't become what they are. What's the point of that? What's the point of becoming what they are? What's the point of picking up a weapon and doing something like they do? You've lost yourself at that point. Charlie spoke the truth. He did. That's why they hated him. And Charlie spoke it sincerely and with confidence and without apology. Okay. I'm gonna I want to read you a couple of other things, but first let me look at some of the stuff that we're seeing online that people are saying and doing. Here's one. This is Stephen King. There's so many lies out there that are being spread about Charlie. And again, I hope leftists are watching this. I put this one on my Facebook page. I never put streams on my Facebook page. It's the first time. I've put them on the Deprogrammed page a couple times, but this is the first time I put in my profile because I was just like, you know what? A lot of these people leftists who seemingly know nothing about him, but are callously sharing untrue things. Like maybe they will see this and it will give them pause. Stephen King did this. He shared this. He said Charlie advocated stoning gays to death. Just saying. He just threw that out there casually. He just threw out this lie casually. Now you may say, well, he didn't know it was a lie. He saw it somewhere and he believed it. That's the problem. That's the problem. Go do your research first. Charlie was the first person to encourage this. I've actually seen on the positive end of this, I've seen some few compared to the disgusting celebrations of his murder. I have seen a few people who've said, you know, I disagree with Charlie. He helped me to learn how to do my research and present my arguments better. Like that's what he was about. He went to college campuses because college campuses are failing at this actually. And he was modeling it for college students. How to form your ideas, not by receiving them, not by hearing something, believing it, and just spreading it, but by doing the work required to hold that opinion. So many of these people online, they're saying things like, he's hateful. He was hateful. I challenge you. What's something hateful he said? Now, one person replied to me, I don't care to find out. I don't care to back it up that I'm calling him that casually. This man, a day after he was murdered and taken from his wife and children, I'm just going to call him hateful online, and I don't feel any responsibility to explain why I think that or to give any context, and I don't care to know. This was basically a summary of the response that I got back. And to just do that so casually. I saw another friend. She's one of the few woke leftist comedians that I used to represent when I was in the woke comedy world, and one of the few who did not unfriend me. And I find her to be more open-minded than most in that world. And I know she has a good heart. And yes, she's still in the woke leftist cult. Yes, she's still a part of, in my opinion, that very evil ideology. But I know her to have a good heart. And those kind of people, it's like, if they're not going to cut me off and they're in that cult and they're not cutting me off, I'm not going to cut them off. I have love for her. I have agape love for her. But even she shared sarcastic mockery about his death, and then her comments exploded with it. And it was so disheartening to see that you could do that to someone who was just murdered for encouraging free speech, for encouraging dialogue instead of violence, that you could just do that so casually and not know anything about him. Here's some of the people I wanted to show you, who are, some of them, not all of them, but some of them facing repercussions for this. And a note about this, by the way, I've seen people sharing these, making people wear like, hey, meet so-and-so, he's a teacher in such and such elementary school. Here's him posting hateful things celebrating this assassination. And here are my thoughts on it. When they're targeting and they're going after hateful, demonic people who are saying this kind of stuff, but who work at, like, I don't know, Home Depot checkout line, or have some job and work at the Dollar General or something. I'm not a part of that. I don't believe in, like, oh, let's go and try to get that person fired. Oh, let's do it to punish them. Let's go to the Home Depot, or let's go to. I don't believe in that. I think that's a little too close to becoming like them. Honestly, they can say the vile things they want to, if short of calling for more assassinations. I don't agree. That's incitement. But when they are in a position of trust in society, when they are in a position where we entrust them with children or our health, or entrust them with our lives, then that's unacceptable. And so a lot of these people that are being outed, they are entrusted with the care of children. These murderous demons entrusted with the care of children, or with our medical health. Some of them are doctors, some of them are educators. And so I fully support, their employer needs to know, hey, this person who you entrust with the care of the public wants half of the public dead. That's important. That is important. That is germane to their job. It's dangerous. They should not be teaching children. Violent extremists should not be teaching children. I don't care if they're ringing me up at the Dollar General. They should not be teaching children. They should not be administering healthcare to people. They can't be trusted with that. So here's some of these. This one says, I'm deeply troubled by the hateful response of a debate teacher to the death of Charlie Kirk, a man known for engaging in peaceful debate and open discussion. When educators entrusted with shaping the minds of our children celebrate tragedy instead of modeling respect, it's a wake-up call for every parent. And by the way, speaking of the importance of words, I wouldn't use the word tragedy here. I would use the word evil. I think they're very different. But I'm just saying that to point out, like, words are, for people who were like nitpicking him about preferring the word sympathy to empathy, he's a reason for that. But I get it. I get why people call it a tragedy. I just don't personally. I think we should call a spade and call evil evil. When educators entrusted with shaping the minds of our children celebrate tragedy instead of modeling respect, it's a wake-up call for every parent. With influences like this in our public schools, parents should be very concerned about the values being taught in the classroom. We need teachers who inspire civil discourse, not spread division. Now, this teacher, is a debate teacher, Kirsten Buller Nash, in the Pflugerville Texas, really close to me, independent school district. She said, to quote Joshua Wurzman, quote, "I do not condone the use of violence. However, I refuse to feel bad about the death of a Nazi whose rhetoric was firmly centered in dishonesty for the sake of cruelty." False. This is you, Kirsten Buller-Nash. You. Your rhetoric is firmly centered in dishonesty for the sake of cruelty. You are a liar and demonic. She continues, he wasn't a result of extremism. He was a major catalyst for it, and the country was a much worse place because he was given a platform. That's the exact opposite of the truth. Charlie's murder created a void that people are wondering who's going to fill that. Who is going to be that calm voice who pushes back against violent extremists like this debate teacher in Pflugerville, and also pushes back against the fascists, the neo-Nazis, the white nationalists. Who's going to fill those shoes? The country was better for having known him. Young people were better for having been blessed with the time that he was here on earth. Our country was better. She continues, he was a racist, sexist asshole. No, he was not. He was none of those things. He was the opposite of those things. He was a racist, sexist asshole who used his platform to incite violence. No, lady. Again, this is what you are doing. To race bait, to spread disinformation. That's what you're doing. And fuel hatred. He is not a martyr. He was not a good Christian man. Do I feel badly for his children? Absolutely. But will I feel one iota of sadness about the world being without this giant mouthpiece of hate? Absolutely not. She is describing herself to a T. And this woman, until recently, was entrusted with the instruction of children. Now, Pflugerville Independent School District ended up releasing a statement and saying, as of the end of last year, she's not been employed by them. But her LinkedIn still says she's a consultant, a debate consultant. It's so crazy because if you read her stuff online, she brags about being, teaching children rhetoric and how to discuss things and debate things. Lady, that's what Charlie Kirk did. You pay lip service to it. Just a freaking monster. Yes, I'm angry. See what I told you? I have the anger too. I understand it. Yes, this makes me livid. Director of Speech and Debate. She was at Hendrickson High School until the end of last year. She's still listed as an independent consultant, as a guest lecturer on debate and speech. This woman who's celebrating the murder. And then when the people, found this post, she doubled down and was laughing at it, laughing at the fact that people were calling this what it is, evil. That's a teacher. Here's one. Meet Joe Sedlak, a special education teacher for kids with autism. You should not be entrusted with the care of children. A special education teacher for kids with autism at Roderick Middle School in Las Vegas. He loved watching every fraction of a second of the videos of Charlie Kirk being murdered. Truly sick stuff. He's a proud member of the Las Vegas Democratic Socialists. Not surprising. This man should be nowhere near children, Clark County School District. There's information here for where he works, where he instructs children with autism. This is one of his posts. I have watched the video over and over like 50 times now, and not the far away video, the close-up video. I love every fraction. I love every fraction of a second of it, and it gets better with every watch. If they were aiming for his head, he says, they were a terrible shot. Like, that thing was huge. How do you miss? Then he shared a Miley Cyrus song, Party in the USA, very fitting for the occasion. This guy is entrusted with the care of children. You know, this is a times like this, like I said, when the veil is ripped back, this is a great wake-up call. A lot of the demons just crawl out of the woodwork. You know, God, thank you, God, for illuminating the darkness. If not for this, you might entrust your children to the care of Joe Sedlick, a murderous monster. This one, I'm going to come back to this one. This is a statement trying to create more targets. Forest Grove, Oregon, Neil Armstrong Middle School teacher. City of Cornelius counselor John Colgan posted on social media that he was very happy to learn that Charlie Kirk was killed. He says Kirk asked for it, reflecting a common sentiment among even mainstream Democrats that those who reject their left-wing politics should expect to be killed. This is from Andy No. Here's this teacher, middle school teacher. He says, hearing that Charlie Kirk got shot and died really brightened up my day. Nobody deserves it, but some are asking for it. Oh, what's the difference there? He was asking for it. Are you the middle school kids, the little children that you're entrusted with? If they have conservative parents, if they have parents who are classical liberals, if they have parents who are libertarians, are they asking to be murdered? This man should not be near children. This one, again, works at Neil Armstrong Middle School. Here's another one. Meet Anna Kenny. Here, she celebrates Charlie Kirk being murdered and attempts to justify his murder. She's an associate professor in the Department of Pediatrics at Emory Medicine in Atlanta. Somebody else had posted, they claimed that a man went undetected on the rooftop, shot and killed him with a single shot, jumped down from the said roof, ran into the woods, and left a rifle there. And then Anna, the associate professor at the Department of Pediatrics at Emory, Anna Kenny, said, good riddance. Then she said, should I feel bad that I don't feel bad about Charlie Kirk? Reading his sayings, he seems like a disgusting individual. That's you, Anna. That's you. He said gay people deserve to die. He did not say this. Again, you're just spewing falsehoods. You're spewing lies like a demon because you think it justifies the demonic hatred and desire for blood that you feel. You are the monster here. This woman should not be teaching. She should not be around young people. She should not be around people who are learning to be pediatricians. She should not be informing them. This woman should not be entrusted with our health, our care, our lives, our kids. She continues with the lies, by the way. He said gay people deserve to die. No, he didn't. She says that black women have slow processing brains. No, he didn't. She even put that last part in quotes. No, he didn't. I know what she's talking about there. He didn't. I'll explain it, but let me continue. His teachers would have been my generation, she said. Disgusting messaging. Sad for his wife and kids. That's you are disgusting. He did not say black women have slow processing brains. He said that people who are DEI hires, who admit, who celebrate the fact that they were DEI hires, who are celebrated by the left for being DEI hires, that they are incompetent. That some of them, yes, it's obvious. And he basically was saying, you don't have to tell us. It's funny that they're celebrating and telling us they're DEI hires. We already knew because of their slow processing brain. We already knew. He did not say black women as a group he did not say this about black women. He said this about specific people who have announced that they were hired because of racist and sexist DEI policies. This is a critique of racism and sexism in hiring and promoting. It's a critique of racial and sex-based discrimination. It's not a critique of like you're making black women into a monolithic group. He had actually distanced himself from Candace Owens, T-Swan. And I think her statements following his death are disgusting. I have one of those we can play. I think he distanced himself for good reason. But was he still friendly with her and talking with her? Yes, because that's what we are called to do as Christians. Taking a little second, just the anchor. I get it. Yes, the drifter. If you get hired specifically for your skin color or ethnic background or biological sex, only then is your intelligence going to come into question. Yes, it necessarily does. If we are hiring and promoting and accepting people into college based on race and sex and sexuality, well, then that's when we start to question the merit. This is why racist and sexist discrimination policies like DEI, the Supreme Court has said, hey, guess what? You can't do that in college admissions anymore. Good grief. My husband said he said he wouldn't fly in a plane piloted by a black man. No, he did not say that. He said that now, because of DEI, because they are using DEI, they're using race and sex to hire and promote people as pilots. And they're doing it in medicine too, by the way. These things are very scary to do this in when you're talking about pilots, when you're talking about doctors, surgeons. That's where you definitely want the people to be selected because of merit, not because of race or sex. Because they started doing this and have admitted to doing it, that means they are now promoting people on the basis of what? On the basis of what skin color they are, on the basis of what sex they are. Charlie Kirk said, I want the most excellent pilots. I want the most excellent surgeons. The thing about DEI policies, which that's what he was talking about, is that now it has made people rightfully. He said, when I get on a plane, I always hope it's not going to be a black guy now because of DEI. Nobody was questioning that. Nobody cared about that before DEI. If you had a black pilot, if you had a female pilot, you knew they were there because of merit. And probably they had to be the best to be there if they were facing any kind of racial or sexist bias that the left says still exists. So if they were, then you knew they had to be the best. But now it's the opposite. Now it's like, if you see a white guy pilot, you're like, oh, he had to be really good because they are jumping over very much more qualified white guys to promote women and to promote people of color. That's what DEI does. This is why we have to get rid of racist and sexist discrimination in hiring, in college admissions, in promotions. We have to get back to meritocracy, so people don't have those worries or questions about their surgeon, about their pilot. Toxic Walt says, I think it was a college in Los Angeles that was graduating DEI people that couldn't even draw blood correctly. Yeah, one of the things Charlie Kirk talked about a lot was, we saw an assassination attempt on the president where they this psychopathic ideology nearly murdered Trump as well. It's the ideology that's propelling these people, right? We saw an assassination attempt on the president, and at that point, people were like, why are there all these what look to be overweight women in Secret Service? And then it turns out the Secret Service had instituted some kind of DEI thing about wanting to have 30% women. Why? You want the people who are best suited for the job. When they do that, when they institute these DEI policies and they say, you know what, we're going to have parity. We're going to have 30% women, or we're going to have 50% women. that means they are automatically lowering the standards in order to reach that quota. They don't have to run as fast. They don't have to have the same reaction time. They don't have to be able to lift as much weight. They don't have to be as competent with the fire. And this is not to say, leftists always like mishear this. This is not to say that there is no woman out there, that there are no women who are qualified. There are. The point is, you choose them by their merit. You don't choose that. You choose them by, you select the ones who meet the standard. You don't lower the standard to reach some quota of like, hey, we want 30% ladies or 50% ladies. Okay. I do want to show you, I think maybe just a couple more of these because it is overwhelming. And I get the sense that some of the naive leftist people or people who are sort of woke adjacent in my Facebook feed, that they just don't see this stuff and they don't know. And they don't know where this comes from. When they repeat stuff like, oh, he was hateful, falsehoods, like, oh, he was hateful, or he was this or that, or he was a fascist, which is just an insane lie. The fascists hated Charlie Kirk. Okay. When you say stuff like that, it proves to me you have no idea what the pieces are on the board. You don't even know the game that's being played. You have no idea what's going on. You're of no help to anyone. You're actually, if anything, you are helping the fascists because you're using that word incorrectly and misidentifying people who are effective at holding them back, like Charlie was. You're labeling him as that. You are showing disaffected young men that it doesn't matter if they behave with integrity and follow truth and love like Charlie Kirk did, or if they become an actual fascist, you're going to call them one anyway. That's what you're showing them. Charlie Kirk was a moderate. He was one of the most moderates out there. Like he was mainstream, very normal, conservative, classical liberal beliefs. This one I wanted to show you. This is a nurse. Michaela Grievous. What a name, right? A nurse who works at UVA Health made multiple posts online smearing Charlie Kirk and celebrating his death. She said, quote, "I lack empathy for a literal Nazi." Well, he's not a Nazi, literal or otherwise. She says the world is a safe place without him. This is a nurse. Here she's got a sign that says, "A riot is the language of the unheard." And of course, the BLM, which should, at this point, I feel, Antifa, BLM, terrorist organization. Why have they not been designated as such? Look at our little banner here. Diversity, equity, inclusion. It's all of the woke cult, death cult garbage. Hate cult. That's what they are. She says, no, this is a critical care nurse at UVA Medical Center. Do you feel safe now that you know this? Do you feel safe? Should she be entrusted? If you go there as her patient, should she be entrusted with the healthcare, with critical care for the public, the general public? What if you came in with a MAGA hat on? Something innocuous like that she has been programmed and radicalized to hate. She says, no, I will not mourn a known white supremacist. He's not. He's the furthest thing from it. I will not mourn a known white supremacist whose entire platform was built on inciting violence. No, that's you. You're here. She's here in a sign that incites violence, that encourages rioting, that justifies rioting and violence. She's holding a sign encouraging violence. And then she says his platform was built on inciting violence. No, it wasn't. It was the exact opposite. This is like biblical stuff where it talks about in Isaiah, woe to him who substitutes dark for light, salt for sweet, good for evil. This is the upside down world. While those who are evil and depraved and violent and extremists point the fingers at good men like Charlie Kirk and put everything they are onto him. She said his platform was built on inciting violence, that he didn't believe in empathy. That's not true. He didn't prefer the term empathy. He preferred the term sympathy. And he fell victim to his disgusting ideologies. I see. Okay. He was adamantly against gun reform and lost his life because of it. No, he lost his life because of evil belief system, the same evil belief system that you're in. In his words, it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment, end quote. I'm going to come back to that too, because that's another quote they're enjoying sharing, and they're sharing it with the intent of trying to justify his murder, which is so sick to do. And I have some thoughts on that, but let me finish what she said. She said he believed children deserved to die in order to keep the Second Amendment. He did not believe they deserved to die, lady. You are saying he deserved to die. He did not believe children deserve to die. She says, you don't get to tell me I lack empathy for not mourning a literal Nazi, especially when y'all have stayed silent about the death of the innocent people Charlie Kirk incited violence against. Who's that? Who's that? He was not an innocent man. Yes, he was. He was disgusting, vile human being. No one should mourn the wicked. The only people I feel empathy for are his children and anyone who had to witness his death. I have plenty of empathy. No, you don't. You sick person. And the amount of gun violence in this country is sickening, and the world is a safer place without him. You don't actually care, critical care nurse Michaela Grievous at UVA Medical Center. You don't actually care about gun deaths and gun violence, because this is you celebrating and encouraging gun violence, gun murders. He never did this. He never did what you're doing.
I really never thought I would see the day that I had to defend why I'm not mourning a literal white supremacist Nazi. You know, I decided to delete my other videos. Actually, one of them got taken down for harassment and bullying, which I find very ironic, considering the person that I was talking about spread his hateful and bigoted messages for a living. Like, literally called for the extinction of other groups of people.
No, he did not.
But his videos stay up everywhere. I feel like I remember there was a time that, like, you could walk into a room and be like, don't you think that Nazis are bad people? Like, objectively bad people, like, by any measure of morality. And people would be like, oh yeah, Nazis are terrible people.
Charlie,
I feel like neo-Nazis, all of a sudden, they receive all the sympathy in the world. Well, he had a family, and he had a...
Let me just stop. I can't listen to any more of her because it's going to make me so furious. He was actually doing something to combat fascism. Hear me, leftists, hear me. Unlike this idiot, this demon on the screen, he was actually doing something more than you have ever done. 1,000,000 times what you have done. He was doing that to push back against, to work against neo-Nazis, against fascism. He spoke, he encouraged debate and discussion with young people to prevent violence. He believed in the power of ideas over murder, which you celebrate. I just, you're so uninformed, and the more gracious take would be, the more gracious way to look at it would be, the Lord forgive them for they know not what they do. And sometimes I'm able to get there, and other times I'm not. And I think that's okay. We cycle through. It's like the stages of grief or what have you. But other times I look at this and I'm just filled with, I know, the kind of rage, righteous rage that I know a lot of you are filled with. I did want to address one thing I saw in the chat, and I will get to the super chats. Thank you guys. I was trying to save them to the end because I wanted to be able to get through this. But I saw this come across my screen. I just wanted to address it. Grade AZ Peach says, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely okay with getting these people fired en masse. They are unhinged. Taking away their income would only serve to radicalize them more. I hear that. I hear you. And actually, I agree with you when it comes to the ones whose jobs do not impact other people, like other people's safety or health or education. I completely agree with you. That's why I said I didn't share any of the ones. There's been lots of these kind of posts also about, this is Brenda. She works at Hardee's, or, this is Brenda. She works at the McDonald's. Like, no, it doesn't. I'm not. That's just at that point. That to me is just vengeance. You're just trying to get Brenda fired, and at the McDonald's, and her job. She's not entrusted with the education of children. She's not entrusted with the health of medical patients who are coming to see her. I think it's a very different thing depending on the job and what kind of, is it a high trust job? Is it a job where we entrust them with being able to take care of the vulnerable, like people who are sick, people who are kids? That's where I think, their job needs to know, because if they're unhinged and they're putting the fries in the bag at McDonald's, there's no need. I don't care. Let them say what they want to say. If they're unhinged and they are in charge of educating a child, their job needs to know. It does matter. That's just my opinion on that. Just trying to explain it better. I'm going to take a quick break and just read some of these super chats. I've got, oh man, got a bit of headache forming. Just the anger. Hey, Randy, thanks for the $2 super chat. He says, hang in there, Keri. You are loved. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you guys being here today and trying to process some of this together, I guess. I feel a lot of, like I said, it's all these different like vast emotions at the same time that I'm cycling through, like a lot of you are, the grief, the sorrow, the anger. I'm also overcome by love for the good people in my life, the good people who are in my church, in my family, in my community, my friends, and many of you online, and people I've met in real life, who I consider friends, who I've met, like Randy. I'm so grateful for good men. I'm so grateful for good men and good women. When I say men, I mean mankind. I'm just grateful for good people right now. And so I've been feeling that kind of outpouring as well. And, texted a couple friends who I thought needed it. Like, hey, like, I just have this agape love for you. I can't explain it. It's like brings out the light too. It's not just the darkness. Randy Wallen for $10. Thank you, Randy. Says the left is filled with emotionally crippled, pharma-filled, self-loathing malcontents. What a mouthful. Let me get that right, Randy. The left is filled with emotionally crippled, pharma-filled, self-loathing malcontents. Truth. They invent great enemies to slay in order to bring themselves some feeling of accomplishment. They are not well. This is true. And the same evil leftist ideology that animates the psychopaths who actually commit the violence, like the coward who slaughtered Charlie Kirk, the same ideology that animates the murderers is the ideology that is influencing people you and I know to post casual lies about this man they know nothing about, this good man they know nothing about. Randy Wallen for $5. Thank you, Randy. Says, they don't unalive you because you're a fascist. They call you a fascist so they can unalive you. Unalive yous because of YouTube's ridiculous rules, Red Rum. Yes, YouTube is ridiculous. YouTube, it's so stupid they censor certain words because then, eventually they'll have to censor unalive because people just use other words to try and say those things. Randy again. Thank you. Randy says $5 for $5. What a surprise. It was a leftist scumbag. Indoctrinated by leftist scumbags, educated by leftist scumbags, and celebrated by leftist scumbags. Yeah, I have some stuff on the killer we're going to look at. It seems like he was raised by what appears like most likely conservative parents. I don't know if they're conservative or not, but his dad, like he was I think his dad was former military or police and looks like a good guy. I've seen pictures of them. He's got, he just looks like your fellow based bro neighbor, like a good old boy down the street. And he was taught how to use firearms at a young age. I think his mom was a social worker. We're going to look at some of this stuff. And so the interesting thing now is that even though he wrote Antifa slogans on the ammo, we know some of the slogans that he wrote now. The interesting thing is that there are some leftists online who are trying to say, well, he was a conservative Republican, which is such a lie, because it involves, I don't know for sure I'm still waiting to get all the details, but given that he wrote Antifa slogans on the ammo, and given that the only report I've heard so far, and correct me if I'm wrong if you know more than this, but a family friend came forward because the young man who's 21 or 22 had confessed to his dad, who told a family friend, and they turned him in. And good for them for turning him in. And what the family friend said was that at a dinner the night before, they had been talking about Charlie Kirk coming to campus, and he had been talking about how much he hates him and how violent Charlie Kirk is and how hateful Charlie Kirk is. All the things, this is why it's important. All the things that these idiots on Facebook are saying, these untrue things, that's what this young man was supposedly saying the night before. It involves a lie. Just because his parents were conservative, you're asking us to pretend like young people are not indoctrinated online and in colleges into this radical, extremist, hateful, and evil ideology. I was, okay? Most of us who have left, a lot of us who have left the woke left, we weren't always in the woke left. We came from homes that were pretty normal, and then we went to college or we got online and we became radicalized. That's what happened to me. I became radicalized at Duke University. I was raised in a pretty conservative home. I go away to university and I change. Like, that's where they're picking it up. It's amazing to me that you're like, oh, he believed what his parents did. No, he clearly didn't. He clearly didn't. That's what this whole thing is about, is that this ideology is radicalizing people. That's what all these hateful, vile, disgusting messages we've been looking at are about. It's radicalizing normal, average people down the street. Our neighbors, doctors, teachers. It has to stop. We don't know yet. More details than this. This is what I knew when we started. We're going to look at an article about it. Now would probably be a good time to do that, I guess. Let's share this one. This is my friend Melissa Chen. She says Dems have a habit of downplaying Antifa for a decade now. When one fearless reporter, Mr. Andy No, made it his beat, they tainted him as a far-right activist. They did, which is so crazy. Andy No is like a gay Asian man, and they're like, you're a Nazi, and you're all. They do the same thing to him that they do to Charlie, that they do to you, that they do to me. They tainted him as a far-right activist. Mainstream media ignored his work. When he was almost killed covering their riotous mob in Portland, the Antifa mob, many said he was, quote, asking for it. Really? For doing what journalists are supposed to do? Joe Biden even dismissed Antifa as, quote, just an idea. Well, this idea was engraved on bullets that took Charlie's life. Many Democratic leaders and commentators have rightly condemned the murder, but it's not enough. They have consistently ignored and downplayed Antifa and left-wing extremist ideology. It's time to take it seriously. And then she linked to Andy No's article, Charlie Kirk assassin suspect appears to have killed for Antifa, confirmed rifle cartridge messages show. Suspect Tyler Robinson, 22, of Utah, has been identified and arrested. Governor Cox confirms that Antifa phrases were written on the rifle cartridges in Charlie Kirk's assassination. This is a picture of the dirtbag. Here's the article, and I'll read through some of this. At a Friday morning press conference announcing the arrest of 22-year-old Tyler Robinson and the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Utah Governor Spencer Cox revealed new details about evidence collected at the scene of the shooting. Look at his eyes, by the way. There had been confusion after the New York Times cited an unnamed law enforcement source countering reporting by the Wall Street Journal and Steven Crowder via his ATF source about Antifa and trans phrases on rifle cartridges. Governor Cox's remarks now confirm that Antifa phrases were indeed found. According to Cox, one cartridge was inscribed with, "Hey, fascist, catch." Hey, fascist, catch. Another read, "Oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella." I don't know that song, but the latter are lyrics from the World War II era Italian resistance folk song that has been adopted by Antifa as an unofficial anthem. This is the song they sing. It is their anthem. It was on the bullet. Now I know, yes, anybody could put that on a bullet and try to make it. There have been people saying, how do we know he's not one of the grippers, one of the Nick Fuentes following alt-right Nazis? Like, how do we know he's not one of the woke right people? Like, I don't know. I'm still waiting for more information. Those people hated him too. But either way, it's sort of like debating like which circle of hell. Like, these are both like terrible extremist ideologies, and they feed into each other and they prop each other up. These hateful, radicalized leftists are fueling the growth of the hateful, radicalized woke right, which has a ways to go to catch up with them, by the way. The woke left is mainstream. It's mainstream. It's doctors and nurses. It's teachers, you know. It's accepted. So this song is frequently sung at the Antifa rallies, and the song's title is featured on their signs and slogans. In 2019, Washington State Antifa gunman Willem Van Spronsen closed his manifesto with Bella Ciao from the song before attacking an ICE facility in Tacoma with a rifle and incendiary devices. He was shot dead while trying to ignite a propane tank close to the building and has since been glorified by Antifa as a hero and a martyr. Governor Cox also verbally described and did not show arrow inscriptions, up arrow, right arrow, and 3 down arrow symbols. The 3 down arrows may be Antifa's iron front symbol, though this cannot be confirmed until images are released. The arrows, if lined up, could be a reference to this video game called Hell's Divers. It could also be that video game reference, in which the arrows represent a bomb weapon that can be used. But this is the Antifa one that it might be describing. They haven't released pictures of it, or at least they hadn't before I started. They had just described it. The governor noted that other casings read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO," and notices bulges, OWO, what's this? The latter appears to be a reference to a furry online meme, which would match with investigators revealing that Robinson was a heavy user of Discord. If this dude was a furry, by the way, that doesn't rule out the groypers or the leftists. I'm just being real. Those groypers have disgusting sex fetishes, catboy stuff. Like they're fake Christians. They're fake trad, Americans. They're just as much into that degenerate cult, like sex culture as the leftists. Nearly all of the recent high-profile young mass shooters or school shooters were active on Discord, where they are believed to have been radicalized in specific private channels. Cox is, so that's where it's like he was on Discord and he's online, and that is where people are getting indoctrinated into woke ideology. It's your social media, it's your social networks, or it's your school. If you're not getting it directly pumped into your veins at school, you're getting it online every day. Cox's clarification narrows the speculation. The casings bear clear Antifa references, but at this stage do not appear to contain any direct mention of trans ideology. The ATF's internal confusion surrounding trans ideology may have stemmed from Robinson's alleged furry reference. A family member who helped identify Robinson to investigators said that Charlie Kirk was coming to Utah Valley University. Oh, he said that the suspect said that Charlie Kirk was coming to Utah Valley University and, quote, was full of hate and spreading hate. That's what the shooter, said about Charlie Kirk, allegedly. The alleged shooter. Robinson's father turned him in, and the family has been highly cooperative in the investigation. When I saw a picture of this guy, before I read the details, I saw a picture of him with his dad, and then I was like, I just made some gut reaction. What do I think of this picture? I was like, oh, his dad looks buff, former military, former police officer, probably a conservative. This kid, this young man, this is what I thought. I don't think it's true. Since then I haven't found this part out, but I was thinking maybe his parents got a divorce. Maybe he hates his dad. Whatever. Like this guy, when you become radicalized online into the woke ideology, it severs all of your connections to friends and family who are anything other than woke left. You develop a hatred for them. You develop a resentment for them. I cannot imagine what it's like to be those parents right now. Randy Wallen for $10. Randy says the left destroyed order, unity, community, safety. Most live in a false reality with their minds clouded by psychotropics. We cannot coexist with these people. The left did destroy these things, and they're trying to... They would love to see us in a world of absolute chaos and destruction. I don't use the phrase death cult lightly. That's what it is. I don't use the word demonic lightly. That's what it is. Super Based. Hey, Super Based gifted 10 memberships. Hey, my little membership fairy. Thank you for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Robert Lowry. Give it up for one of our mods. Robert Lowry gifted 10 memberships. You have these guys to thank if you got a membership to the YouTube channel. Your Average Patriot Nerd also gifted 5 memberships. Wow. People are just giving out the memberships. These are the people to thank if you got one. Super Base gifted 10 more memberships. I appreciate you so much. And then he says, Charlie was the best of us. God be with his family and watch over us in this fight for the soul of our nation. Thank you for this. This is the prayer that you should be doing if you pray. And if you don't pray, but you want to start or try, do a prayer like this. Pray for our country. Pray for the soul of our nation. We need it. There are forces who would see us erupt into civil war, who would see us erupt into violence against, neighbor against neighbor. And some of those forces, a lot of those forces are on the left. We know this. We know they want us dead. I've been seeing people saying this now, like people like Matt Walsh, and I agree with them. They want us dead. It is a hard pill to swallow for some who've been in denial about it. And so I think that's why a lot of people are in this extended grief, because they're just now realizing the extent of the radicalization of the left, of the brainwashing, of the depravity, of the evil, of the murder. Like they're just now getting it. And they're like, even people that you know as friends and family who you thought you knew them, you thought you love each other, and they would see you dead in the streets because you're not in their woke cult. And that's hard for people to grasp. And so some people are just now realizing this. And that's why this has been so traumatic for a lot of people, because it goes beyond Charlie's assassination to like this realization that this evil is all around us. They want us dead. But here's my plea. unlike some people who are admitting this truth and are calling for tribalism, who are calling for vengeance and hatred, and I'm going to make the opposite plea. There's a poem I like by Wendell Berry. It's like it's about remaining joyful even when you know all the facts and you have considered all the facts. My plea is that people live their lives like Charlie did, with integrity, that they live their lives in light and love and truth in Jesus. My plea is that we speak truth as boldly and confidently as he did, that we are unashamed to say what's true, that we quit softening our words, that we don't worry so much about offending people. They're going to be offended no matter how you say it. This is true. They're going to be offended either way. The truth is offensive. The Bible tells us this. It's offensive. So my plea is that we speak boldly against evil. We have nothing to do with the works of darkness. That's what Scripture tells us. Have nothing to do with the works of evil, with the works of darkness. Instead, expose it. Use your anger righteously, but do not let it eat you up. Do not let it change you. Do not let it corrupt your soul. Do not let it, just come in and live there where you become, where it's hard to, you get to a place where it's hard to distinguish you from the people you hate. You can't let that happen. We cannot behave like the monsters we fight. We cannot stoop to their level of depravity. That's hard. I know that's hard to fight that resentment. I know it. You've seen me grapple with the anger even in this stream. I understand it. But you cannot, because you've already lost if you let that happen. If you lose yourself, if you lose the light. That's why I put those verses in my essay, because Jesus is like begging, he's pleading, remain in me. And Jesus was bold. And he spoke truth, which was offensive, which is considered hateful today, truth. And he did it unapologetically with love. Speak the truth. Speak it boldly. Speak it with righteous anger when it's required and appropriate, and speak it with love. But let your motivation be love for God. Let your motivation be love for what is true, beautiful, what is light, what is good. Let your motivation be for what is good. I saw one thing I disagreed with that Matt Walsh said, and I don't disagree with him a lot. And hey, guess what? We're not in a cult, so we can disagree with each other, and that's okay. We're not like the woke left. So don't get alarmed when it's like, I have a disagreement with this person on this one thing. He did a post about how they want us dead. I'm sorry I don't have that one pulled up. And he's right. And then at the end, he said something to the effect of this whole no enemies to the right thing. He didn't use his exact words, but that's what he was saying. Let us all come, united on the right. No, I do not agree with that part, because there are many psychopaths, con men, grifters, evil people, extremists who who place themselves on the right. Even if you want to quibble over, well, they believe in Marxism, or they believe in this, and they're National Socialists, which makes them leftists. And I get all of that, but I'm saying they are identified as the right by the public, and they themselves say they're on the right, and that's how they're seen. And I'm talking about people like Nick Fuentes. I'm talking about people like Andrew Tate and Elijah Schaffer and Joel Webbin. I'm talking about these wolves in shepherd's clothing. And no, that's the wrong thing. That is the wrong thing to say. Have no criticism for the evil that masquerades as being on your side. I am not on the side with evil. That's what sets us apart. The left never criticize their evil elements. They never criticize it until that evil becomes all of the left. They made their evil extremists, their hateful, Marxist, murderous radicals, they made them famous. The people who've incited all of this murder and violence, they put them on television. They make them newscasters. They put them on the New York Times bestseller list. All the people who sow that hateful ideology, they made them famous, and it infected all of the left and destroyed it. And we cannot allow that to happen. Anybody who says, whether if they say no enemies to the left, if they're on the left and they say no enemies to the left, that's what the woke left do. They say that. And if you say no enemies to the right, that's ridiculous. That's you know what that does is it protects psychopaths. It protects evil elements who are embedded in your quote unquote side who would seek to destroy it. And so I don't agree with that. I feel strongly about that. And I wanted to make that distinction. It's like, I don't agree with that bit of advice. Yes, Erica. Hey, Erica. She says, it's bigger than right versus left. It's bigger than a man-made split. God is the one doing the separation, like the Bible prophecies. This is the wheat and the tares, very different than Republicans versus Democrats. It is very different. Thank you very much. Rock Lexicon for $5. Hey, Rock Lexicon, thank you so much. Says Satan is not like a cartoon victim twirling his mustache. He's like Heath Ledger's Joker. He recruits the mentally deranged and promotes chaos. 100%. He's that voice of resentment that whispers in your ear. He's that voice of resentment and arrogance and entitlement and vengeance and malice that whispers in your ear. That pull. Did I miss one? I might have missed one of yours, Rock Lexicon. I think I got them both, though. Erica for $9.99. Thank you. Erica says, Keri, God showed me that the seeds of revival are planted on college campuses right now because of Charlie's work and ministry. Revival is unstoppable. His legacy will be bigger than the enemy anticipated. I understand what you were saying, and I want to thank you for saying it. That's why I titled this like how Charlie Kirk's assassination illuminated the dark and the light, because it's like God turns on the lights at these different moments, different acts of evil, or sometimes acts of tragic acts. He turns on the light, and you can see a lot of the darkness that you couldn't see before. And it's like, thank you for letting me see that. Thank you for telling me about that person. I did not know that they were like that. Thank you for helping me to understand the game board, the game that we're playing, and the pieces on the board. Thank you for that illumination of what's in the dark. And it also, like you're saying, it brings the light out of people. Charlie Kirk inspired. He was a sincere Christian and man of God. He was filled with the Holy Spirit. We can rejoice because we know that he is with our Creator. And he brought the light out in people. And that's why this is so, this has been so traumatic, I guess I'd say, but like emotional for different people, because it was so much bigger than one man. And we know this in our guts. That's why it's affected all of us so much. Randy Wallen for $5. Thank you, Randy. Says Charlie Kirk knew the risk and he went into the wolves' den. Irina Zarutska didn't. Her death was a result of leftist policies. She was a defenseless lamb. Do not forget her. I agree. I want to show you something that my friend shared. And let's see. I'm not going to show her name because this was just a... Actually, I'm not going to put it on the screen because it was a friends only post. It's not something that she wrote. She said she saw this on X and she thought it was perfectly said. So I don't know who originally posted this, but I'm going to read it to you. It's short. It says, "Good morning. The reason you feel Charlie's death so deeply is because grief doesn't measure itself by proximity. It measures itself by meaning. You didn't have to know him personally to feel the sting of his absence, because when a voice like his goes silent, something in the atmosphere shifts. This is so true. The reason it feels heavier than so many other tragedies is because your spirit recognizes that this is not just about a man, it is about a battle. Scripture says eternity is written on our hearts, and when someone who carried truth with boldness is suddenly gone, eternity aches within us. It's like our souls know instinctively that the darkness celebrated, and that strikes us to the core. This is so true. I don't know who wrote this. If you know who wrote this, let me know. The reason you can't shake it is because psychologically, we don't only attach ourselves to people, we attach ourselves to symbols. Charlie became a symbol of conviction in a time of compromise, courage in a time of fear. And when a symbol is struck down, it rattles something primal and eternal inside of us. That's why even those who never met him feel it. There's a strange thread pulling at us, and it is not imagined, it is real. We are bound together by shared purpose, by shared longing for truth, by the Spirit of God himself weaving us into a fabric that cannot be torn apart. This loss pulled at that fabric, and every one of us felt the tug. So if you've wondered why this hits so hard, it's because your soul knows. This is bigger than news. This is bigger than politics. This is about eternity, about truth, and about the weight of a man whose life carried both. I think that was just so beautifully expressed. It's like the stuff that I was trying to put into words and I had trouble doing, and whoever wrote that did such a better job than I did. It's just, thank you for writing that. Hey, Brahma Bull. My friend Brahma Bull's in the chat. The voice of a generation was silenced, and it feels so much worse because whether you personally knew him or not, he was a friend, always smiling and always earnest. I will say this too. I did not know him personally. I just respect his work immensely, and I could tell he's one of the few sincere ones out there doing what he does, and he was great at what he did, and he cared, and he was kind, and I do have friends in common with him, and to a fault, all of them, whether they are Christian or atheist or liberal or conservative, like they all say he was as good of a man off camera as he was on. Like that's who he was. That he was sincere. He wasn't fake like so many. He wasn't a charlatan. He was out there for the right reasons. He had the right virtues, and he lived it. And that is his like legacy. That is like for so many people to speak so well of you and to all share, the ones who knew him to all say that, to say the same. Like he was an exceptionally good man, an honorable man. And of course, look at scripture. Of course, that means the world hates him. If the world hates you, remember it hated me first. That's what Jesus said. If the world hates you, remember it hated me first. Of course, the world is going to hate a man like that. Of course, the walking dead, those who do not live in the light, are going to hate that. Hey, Jeanette. Good to see you. Jeanette's gave a super chat for $10. Thank you. She says, there's a young woman on TikTok saying that we should get the Smith-Mundt Act back and that Obama got rid of that, which keeps the media from being liable for lying to the public. And we should name it the Charlie Kirk Act. I could not agree more. Thank you for that. What a great suggestion. Maybe this is something we should be saying, online with our voice, wherever we can, to get it to Trump's attention, that people should be sharing this on social media and make it bigger and bigger, that this is what needs to be done. Because they need to be constrained with consequences for libel, for defamation, for inciting violence. Blardful says, taking everything the groypers say literally is disingenuous. Many are righteously angry young men performatively saying offensive things, but it's being treated 100% literally and sincerely. I understand there are sincere young men who are pulled into that evil groyper cult. I understand that. Just like there are sincere young men and young women who are pulled into that evil woke leftist cult. That's the danger. That's why we have, I feel compelled anyway, to shed a light on what those ideologies really are. Because I know there's good people pulled into it, good-hearted people. I know that, but they are being radicalized in those cults. And it's not disingenuous to say that about the ideology that the groypers spread. It's not. That's true. That is what they spread. They spread hateful, actually hateful rhetoric. They spread anti-Christian beliefs. They promote degenerate sex. They basically, the ideology that the groypers have, it's against everything they claim to be. They're like the woke leftists who are saying one thing and doing another, who are pointing at others and saying that, like, they're the up is down, down is up. Yeah, they do the juice barking. They do all of that. And the people who are pulling disaffected young men into that stuff, just like the people who pulled women into woke ideology, like those people are the ones that I think need to be called out, like need to be named and said, this is who is doing this. Yes, this is what they are, and not be afraid to say that. The same way we say it about people on the left who do it. We say it about Ibram X. Kendi. We should be even more vigorous at keeping wolves away from the flock on the right, from feasting on the flock on the right. Andrew Tate, these kind of characters, Elijah Schaffer, Joel Webbin. Like, we should be more vigorous about keeping these wolves out. This is why we need good, strong men who are actually, like Charlie Kirk, speaking and living the word of God. We need shepherds. We need sheepdogs. I want to end with another piece. Let me read this one to you. I thought this was one of the most beautiful things. I originally saw this as an X post, and this was written by my friend James Lindsay, who knew Charlie, was friends with Charlie, and I thought it was just like a very touching tribute. This made me cry. Catharsis or civilization. This is his attempt to try and put these thoughts down. Catharsis or civilization, a statement from our founder on the life of Charlie Kirk. This is on the New Discourses site, James's site. And there's a picture of them together and Charlie's smile. He says, I've been trying to share a particular message for a couple of years now, and I can never quite find the words. I doubt I will tonight, but I have to try again because I watched my great friend get murdered over it today. We have a choice, catharsis or civilization. There's no other choice for us. We can have a civilization where people are civilized enough to live, work, and trade with one another in a productive way, a safe way, a trustworthy enough way, or we can abandon it for the pursuit of letting the negative emotions of the past years, decade, or decades consume us. There's no other choice. If we choose catharsis, we let our emotions, our pathos, get the better of us. We turn to our anger and look to give it more justifications. We turn to our frustration and seek an orgiastic release through whatever deeds vent it. We turn to our oppression, our rage, our despair, our fear, and we let it flow through us until the pathos pours out and covers the land in what will eventually be fire and blood. Catharsis is tempting, and stepping into it will be libidinous, orgastic, elevating, and divine until we realize that it's the feast of demons upon everything we could have built and everything we could have passed on to our children and our posterity. Civilization is harder. It's bitter. In fact, it in comparison to catharsis, it's bitter, he says. It means swallowing hard and taking all those negative emotions and sublimating them into something productive, something that builds rather than makes us feel better. Civilization feels like injustice, in fact, even though it's the only basis for justice outside of heaven and hell, if they exist. I should say, if you don't know James Lindsay and you're watching for the first time, he is an atheist. And he's an atheist who I think gets a lot right about Christianity, and you can see that influence in God working on him even in this piece. He says, if we choose civilization, we're allowed to be mad, but we must temper our anger into right action that builds something to leave a better world, which will dissolve it, of course. We're also, meaning dissolve the anger, we're also allowed to be frustrated, but we must sublimate our frustration into the dedicated search for real and lasting solutions to our problems in a civilization worth living in and passing to our children. We are not allowed to despair, though, and we cannot persist in fear. We must have faith that is swallowing and metabolizing all of our negativity to turn it into a flourishing society is possible and worth it. We must have faith in that, and faith will drive out fear and is the mortal enemy of despair. Civilization is not available on the wide path. It is the narrow path, at least so far as worldly life goes. Veer too far to one side or the other, or even for too long a moment, forget your purpose or principles, and you lose the path and lose civilization and lose everything worth having. Without civilization, though, we will find ourselves in a terror beyond our comprehension. Maybe it will be like the philosopher Thomas Hobbes described it in the wake of the terrible English Civil War, when civilization was nearly thrown aside. Violent, solitary, or tribal, nasty, brutish, short, a wicked and selfish war of all against all. It looks like I don't want to say this word, favelas of Brazil. Maybe we'll end up conquered, fighting among ourselves while our enemies feast on our folly. Maybe we'll end up holding it together, for a little while anyway, under a tyrant who can, for a time, make it all stop and demand order. Maybe we all just end up learning Mandarin and get along mastering the ins and outs of social credit's existence. Civilization is worth fighting for, and catharsis is the kind of momentary pleasure followed by pain that every virtue stands in opposition to. In a civilization, we and each of our children after us can live as individuals, free to pursue our dreams, in insufficient safety and opportunity to generate abundance. Catharsis will be a groupish disaster with all the allure and hangover of a drunken mosh pit. Again, I'm not expressing myself the way I see this issue in my mind. It's such an important message that I just can't get right, no matter how I try. What I will say is that for any differences in the particulars my great friend Charlie Kirk and I have had, Charlie Kirk stood for, lived for, and acted to his dying breath for civilization. He was far too temperate and wise, even at 31, for catharsis. How can I be sure? Under strange circumstances once, I found myself out on a skiing boat on a lake with Charlie Kirk. Music was playing. We were having a good time enjoying the morning. Charlie, with his standard grin, bare chest in the sun, laughed a little and explained himself, quote, "I had fun once, guys, and I hated it." Then he made our host change the music from something fun and hip to classical, and we ran up and down the lake alongside all the other party boats, listening to Bach, Vivaldi, and Stravinsky, not having fun even once and loving it. Charlie Kirk lived for civilization, and nothing remotely like catharsis would have been near his mind, heart, or soul, even in his darkest, most frustrated moments. Charlie wanted to win, but he wanted to win so that we can move away from evil and move away from cathartic, orgiastic destruction and towards civilizational order, where his family and children could grow up as strong, proud Americans. More than that, Charlie lived for Jesus, the Logos, as he is named in John 1. He knew the difference between the Logos and the Pathos, human though he was. He understood civilization is built on the rock of Logos, and that it can never be built on the churning sands of Pathos. That's how I know that Charlie understood the choice I still cannot articulate. We have two options, and only two. They are catharsis and civilization. Charlie Kirk lived that we would have civilization. May Charlie Kirk not have died such that we spiral into catharsis and evil. I think that's just such a beautifully written and articulated message in tribute to his friend. Logos. Hey, Texas Sheep Lady, the word. It is the word. And Ann Pinkova, yes. While civilization is not the goal of man, I think Lindsay gets Christian virtues better than most non-Christians. I will tell you, he does. I agree. He understands it. And think of all the people who have come to Christ through that reason door. Not everyone comes through that door first, you know, but think of all the great writers who've come through that door, all the great Christian authors. And there's so much of what he is thinking about, writing about, sharing these days, the scripture he's sharing, the things that he's thinking about that draws from Christianity, and it's just amazing to watch that. Randy Wellen for $10. Christianity is not a suicide pact. Many calls for forgiveness, civilization, etc. The devil is everywhere. Offering your neck to the wolf is a bad strategy. Life will only be secured by fighting evil. I agree with you. It's not a suicide pact. Calling for civilization, telling people not to become the evil they fight is the opposite of suicide. I think we're saying the same thing. Rock Lexicon for $10. Young men are being radicalized. Kirk, quote, radicalized them for good work. He gave them a mission, a good fight to believe in. Fuentes seems to radicalize them to play reverse victim, a la the left. He does. And he pulls these men, some of them good-hearted, disaffected men who are looking for guidance. And right now, he's out there. I saw today a viral clip of his where he's suddenly saying something different, and it's a clip where people are like, wow, I actually agree with Fuentes on this. And it's him talking about, like, I'm telling all my supporters, don't do violence. And I don't buy it for a hot second. I know some of you will. I do not. I've been around the block with narcissists, like sociopaths. I do not. There's nothing about that is genuine. He's vying for Charlie Kirk's audience. He encouraged a lot of the hatred and vitriol and attacks on Charlie Kirk, even as recently as a few weeks ago. Yes, a total snake speaking out of both sides of his mouth. And he took no responsibility for that, for all of the hatred that he generated and engendered against Charlie Kirk. None of that. He's vying for those young men who are reeling from this. I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate you guys being here and bearing with me through a little discombobulated lack of sleep and, the emotion of this topic and at the beginning. And I appreciate you being here today and processing this with me. And I just pray that I pray for our country, and I pray for our leaders, and I pray for my enemies, and I pray for those who hate me, which is a hard thing to do. I pray for friends and family, and I hope that you guys are praying too. And if you don't pray, good thoughts. Thanks for putting up all the Christian like scripture talk today. I appreciate you. Have a good weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Take care.